Hey everyone, I'm Rick and thanks for joining me. If you're new to the channel, please consider hitting the subscribe button to help the channel grow. And if you like my content, give me a like. Today we'll be looking at the Douk Audio U2 Pro. And to speak about the big elephant in the room, yes, Douk already has a product named U2 Pro. Douk, you really gotta do better in this aspect. At least call it the Mark II or the 2025 edition. I'll be calling this one the U2 Pro 2025 edition. And you can differentiate the U2 Pro 2025 edition because of the outputs. You will see USB-C on the new version, whereas the old version has a USB-B input. However, the internals are quite a bit different. Today we're talking about the newest 2025 version. So what is a U2 Pro? Douk calls it a digital interface, but it's a DDC or digital to digital converter. In the case of this U2 Pro, you get a digital signal via USB audio, and it converts it to two kinds of signals, two SPDIF outputs and one I2S output. But the U2 Pro does a little more in that it isolates electrical signal from your computer, as well as giving you a better clock signal with its internal master clock. The U2 Pro does not have a DAC built in, so no digital to analog conversion. You will not get any analog music out of this device. This connects between your computer and your DAC or integrated amplifier or anything else with a corresponding digital input. So let's take a closer look. Solid aluminum all the way around. On the front we have a few LEDs, and these will light up for our sample rates, PCM and DSD, and you'll see blue for PCM, red for DSD. On the rear, we have one digital input on USB-C. This also provides power to the unit. And then our digital outs, an I2S on HDMI, Toslink optical, and digital coaxial. On the bottom of the unit, we can select what audio class we use for our USB. And down at the bottom we have that toggle, UAC1 or UAC2. We also get a diagram of the pinouts on the HDMI, and I suppose this is for information purposes only, as you cannot change any of the pins on this unit on the HDMI out. Taking a look at the inside, our signal comes in on this USB-C header up here and comes down. We have this thermocoupler, and then down through these banks of resistors and an inductor over to the XMOS processor here. And the biggest upgrade from the last U2 Pro to this U2 Pro is that this one uses the 316 instead of the 208. If we move over to the bottom left, we'll see this crystal oscillator, and this clock is a 24 megahertz reference clock, and it can be desoldered. Douk did give you some space for a larger clock, and it looks like that would be the DIP 14 size. However, it is not hot pluggable. You can't just unplug this little clock here. You do have to desolder it. This frequency is fixed and cannot be changed. And the included clock is a 1.8 volt bi-Lydian in a 1532 SMD package. From there, the reference signal goes back into the XMOS, and 44.1 and 48 kilohertz files use the XMOS's internal clock. And all files are source code output, so no resampling here. From there, the signal goes to this section in the upper left to handle the SPDIF conversion, where we also see a pulse isolation transformer, most likely for the digital coax. And this chip here, just under the HDMI port, handles the LVDS conversion. For $70, it looks great. For testing, what I did is that I connected my MacBook Air. I'm going USB from a hub to the Douk U8 DAC, and then I'm going USB from that same hub over to the Douk U2 Pro converter, and then sending the converter's 3 digital outs, Toslink, coaxial, and I2S over to that U8. On the computer now, I'm running Roon, and the great thing about Roon is that I can link multiple devices. So if I go down here, you'll see that I have the U8 linked with the U2 Pro, which is great because a lot of times you have to go into Windows and switch back and forth on the output device. Roon allows you to send multiple signals from a computer, so I can have multiple DACs or multiple sources playing at the same time. This way, when I switch the input on the Douk DAC, it doesn't have to pause and find the USB signal, and it locks to the signal very quickly. Another thing to note, another reviewer had stated that the U2 Pro does not do DSD over the Toslink or the coaxial. It actually does. You have to be careful with your settings because a lot of times Windows might be converting your DSD to PCM automatically, and there might be a setting in Windows where you can undo this. With Roon though, I'm able to send DSD and PCM. So I'll give you an example here. Now this is 2021 Say Something by Gabriel Mervine, and I have this album on PCM and on DSD. As you can see right here, I'm playing over USB and the DAC is picking up 192 kilohertz and the U2 is showing the same on its blue LED. With the DAC's remote control, I'll cycle through the inputs. I2S still showing 192, optical 192, digital coaxial 192. Now I'll go ahead and pause that track and you'll see down here at the bottom that it is the PCM version. And now I'm playing the DSD version. You'll see that the U2 Pro now shows a red LED. It is under USB at DSD64, so 1 times DSD. You'll see that down in the bottom left in Roon as well. And I will cycle through inputs. I2S, again, DSD, optical DOP, and coaxial DOP. So you can play your DSD files just fine. You will get them over DOP via the SPDIFs and DSD direct from the I2S and the USBs. But either way, you will play DSD. Again, just make sure you have that setting for your computer to not convert DSD to PCM. I also tried connecting my iPad directly to the U2 Pro using the Lightning to USB-C cable, and it would not power the U2 Pro. However, with my Google Pixel 8 and a USB-C to USB-C cable, I was able to power the U2 Pro just fine. I was able to play Tidal, and that sent the signal over to the DAC. That worked out just fine. And for listening, I use headphones, and I started off with the Sivka Robbins. I did start listening with the headphone amplifier of the Douk U8, but it just doesn't have enough power to really tell the differences. I wanted to crank the power a little bit more to see if I can pick up on differences in dynamics. So I went with the SMSL SHX that has a ton of power. This one worked excellent. The first thing that I noticed is that if I went directly USB to the U8, then over to the headphone amp, the sound sounded just fine. It really did sound great. I couldn't pick up on anything that I didn't like about that sound. However, once I went through the U2 Pro and switched over to I2S, I did notice that the bass improved dramatically. It was quite a bit deeper, tighter, and more controlled. Much more texture in the bass. So that was something that really impressed me. I didn't expect to hear that. Switching over to the coaxial and the SPDIF, I had that same sensation. But I really couldn't pick up much difference other than that bass. So I decided to change headphones and I went with something a little bit pricier. I moved up to the SJY Horizon Carbons, planar magnetics. Quite a bit tougher to drive, but boy can you hear the difference now. Once again, that bass is impressively tighter and deeper going I2S or Toslink. I did find that digital coax didn't sound as good to me. I really did prefer the U2 Pro via I2S and Toslink. Honestly, I like the sound of Toslink the best. I felt that the I2S with the Horizons just added a little too much crispness around the vocals. However, the imaging and layering was the best with the I2S. Toslink tended to soften things up just a touch, but that's really the sound that I prefer. That being said, any of the 3 connections via the U2 Pro were definitely better than going direct USB into the Douk U8. And I don't know if that has to do with the reference clock inside of the U2 Pro or its isolation from the computer, but I can definitely tell you there are differences. But for the price you pay, I think it's well worth it if you want the most detail and the best bass. And I'll share what I use the majority of my time listening. I am around 50 years old and I am definitely a hip hop head, and I was super excited for the Kel Banks release that came out on Friday. Kel Banks is one of TDE's in-house producers and a rapper himself with a super smooth flow, and I really like his energy. And I understand that this album helped him deal with the death of his mother, and it really is a beautiful album. Some of my favorite tracks are 400, Hop Out Your Feelings, which is a great feel-good song about getting in the proper mood and just going, the super soulful Stay With Me, and Mama Pain, another excellent track. But all in all, an excellent album. If you're into hip-hop, definitely check it out. Kel Banks, Rhoda. Now going back to the U8 Pro, most of my listening was done through Roon and Tidal, so those tracks are usually in PCM. When I did do DSD listening, I have to tell you that the differences are quite a bit less noticeable. Bouncing back and forth from all of the 3 outputs of the U2 Pro, it was really difficult to hear any difference at all. And even going from the U2 Pro to USB on the U8, that difference in the bass was quite a bit smaller now. And you really had to listen for it. And I'd say you really only hear it for critical listening and not when you're just playing music and doing your chores. So I don't know if it's the way that the converter handles DSD, but the gains are definitely better with PCM. Well, that's all I have on this one. Thanks for watching once again, and I'll remind you, please hit that subscribe button to help the channel grow. And I'll see you on the next one.